CGB, buddy. The time has come. Are you ready for waifus? I'm sorry to get you excited. We're not doing waifus today. We are going to be doing something a little bit different. You have a restricted list, to my knowledge, as we've done in some of your videos, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Also has a limited list. So, today, I am going to show you a bunch of cards that all have been limited at some point. Your goal is to figure out if the card is still limited today. And for context, for everyone watching, we're going to be going based off of the 2025 ban list, which is, I think, the May 2025 ban list. I'm not 100% sure. But whatever the most recent ban list at the time of recording this video, that's what we're going based off of. Because probably if someone watches in the future, this could change. So how you feeling about that?
That actually sounds easier based on the explosive power of current Yu-Gi-Oh! I think that the toughest thing to overcome will be the emotional damage of your intro.
That's true.
Frankly.
Exactly. I got you so excited. I got the fans so excited, and then they're gonna have to keep. I can't just give it to them immediately, right? I have to. It's a slow burn. Eventually, they'll get to the white. Just like with pendulum summoning, I had to hold that out for like a year before I showed you that. All right, here's your first card.
Treeborn Frog. Aw, who could restrict such a cutie?
Who could restrict such a cutie? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's a water level 1 attack 100, defense 100. And once per turn during your standby phase, if this card is in your graveyard and you do not control Treeborn Frog, you can special summon this card. You must control no spell trap cards to activate and to resolve this effect. During your standby phase, if this card is in your graveyard and you do not control this, you can... Okay, so you
can't have
use
multiples.
This as...
That's the idea with that text, yeah.
Yeah. Well, they limited it. Okay, interesting.
I mean, yeah, it did get limited in some. You know it got limited, but is it still
interesting?
Limited? That's the question.
Interesting. What is just free fodder too good? Is this just something that comes back for free?
It's Yu-Gi-Oh, buddy. It's Yu-Gi-Oh, buddy. We like free fodder.
I thought free was like the name of the game. The frog had to get restricted.
Maybe it was too free.
Just Patches the pirate? What happened here? You must control no spell or trap cards. Well, we know that those are not that important in current Yu-Gi-Oh!
Correct. Spells are, traps aren't, but yeah.
Right.
But spells usually don't stay on the field, I'll say.
The question would be, I guess, does this still give you too much stuff? It doesn't feel immediately like a problem. Like, it doesn't say... sacrifice this, search your deck for like the exact thing you need that gets the other thing you need and then pulls the thing out of the extra deck. It's just a little guy.
It's just a little guy.
It's just a little guy. Yeah, it's a little guy who can come back. It can come back. And there are hand traps all over the place that like, from what I've seen, everybody cares about interacting with the graveyard in some way because everybody does. If the Treeborn Frog were a problem, you could just kick it out of the graveyard, right? You could banish it, right?
You could.
Probably something like that.
You could try. Yeah.
And if it were limited right now, would it even, like, would you even run 3 of these if you could?
That's a great question. That's a great question. Remember, if it's not limited, it could be unlimited. It could be semi-limited. I think none of them are semi-limited to my knowledge. But if it's not limited still, it's at 3. So you could look at it that way.
I hate these little trap cards right away because I know you. I know you. But Magic has had effects similar to this, not at like the turn 1 level, but like in turn 2 or 3, things that just keep coming back.
Sure.
And they were decks, but they didn't break things. But they're not the same kind of fodder that Yu-Gi-Oh has.
Correct. So we can use this for fodder for a million different things is the difference.
I think that current Yu-Gi-Oh is on such a like razor's edge of efficiency that I feel like the risk if you draw multiples of these is kind of high. Because you can't if you have 2 of these, like, it's not good.
Let me present another scenario.
You don't get to do the thing.
There is a world it could be at 3, but people still only choose to play 1. Like, that could...
Exactly.
So they could, like, self-limit it themselves, right? So that's an angle to consider. That's an angle to consider.
I guess here's an important question, because I picture this in Magic.
Sure. Okay.
And if the people running, like, the Magic ban list were running the Yu-Gi-Oh! Limited list, they might say... well, there's no reason to unlimit it. So what I need to know is I need to try to frame a question around, like, do they try to keep the limited list short? Is that like a goal? Because I could see them just being like, just keep it limited, because why bother?
At one point, I think they were trying to like narrow down the semi-limited list because there's like so few things actually on it. And then for whatever reason on the last ban list or two, they decided to just start semi-limiting everything, which is really annoying. So for context, the limited list, I'm going to count and you can keep yapping because there's a lot of cards on it. I'll let you know how many cards are on the limited list. I'll give you that information.
Okay. So this is the thing that is going to bug me about this is these cards got limited in the past. Like you need a reason to unlimit it in a way. Like now it has to prove that people would want to play it. And I don't know that there are people out there that this is the reward that gets people excited, because I still think maybe you would only want to play one. So why would you, if you were only going to play one anyway, what's the point in unlimiting it? They would just not touch it is my concern.
Okay,
their approach is just don't mess with it.
I may have miscounted, but there are roughly 80 plus cards on the limited list. I think I counted.
Yeah, okay.
I think I counted 82 if I'm correct. So plus or minus 1 or 2 in case I miscounted, but I think I counted 82 limited cards. So out of a 10,000 plus card pool, there are 82 cards limited currently.
When did this card come out?
This is an oldie. This is 2006. Sounds about right. 2006. A lot of these cards I'm going to show you are pretty old. There's like 1 or 2 that are like newer-ish, but I think the most part we're doing some old stuff today.
All right. I'll look forward to putting my foot in my mouth, but I don't think this needs to be limited anymore. So now my concern is that they didn't bother unlimiting it. They just didn't bother with it and kept it there anyway.
I will say there are cards that you look at this on the limited list and you are like, why is this card still limited? So you are correct in that assumption that is a line of logic you could go down. Yep.
So, gosh, here's the thing. This is going to take a lot of the fun out of it for you because unless I'm just completely wrong. Okay. I'm going to say it's still limited, but not like because it has to be, because they just kept it limited, and that you're starting me up with the absurdity factor. You're going with an absurd pick to mess with my brain on turn 1.
Would I ever do such a thing? Would I ever do such a thing? You're not falling for it.
Yeah, this is still limited.
You should have fell for it because this card is fine. It's at 3. No issue.
I mean, is this a thing where they only play one?
No, this card doesn't see any play. This card's, like, by modern standards, this card's awful. Yeah. This card's so bad.
Okay, gotcha.
In old Yu-Gi-Oh!, when it was slower and we actually had more than, like, 2 to 3 turns on average, Treeborn Frog was crazy because it was a +1 every single turn, because every turn you didn't have spell and traps in your back row. You could bring it back. You could tribute summon it. You could do a whole host of things with it. And it was a very good card. And it actually did get limited. It actually got errated. It didn't used to have that text that said if you don't control Treeborn Frog. It also wasn't a once per turn. So, like, there were things you could do where in the standby phase, you could resurrect Treeborn Frog, use a quick play spell or like an instant to like tribute it to do a thing, and then Treeborn Frog could still come back because now it's like in the graveyard again. So that was really cool. It was actually, there's a lot of really neat tricks you could do with Treeborn Frog. So it did get limited, but now it's at 3 and doesn't see any play because it's way too slow. So you took the bait. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Next card.
Limited card, obviously. All right. Symbol of Heritage. That's a very nice ornament thing for a wall.
It looks cool.
You got there.
It looks like a mana rock in Magic, to be honest.
Yeah, it does. It taps for yellow and
it taps for
deep
yellow
blue and yeah, it's classic. All right. Activate only while there are 3 monster cards with the same name in your graveyard. Select one of those monsters, special summon it, and equip with this card. When this card is destroyed, destroy the equipped monster.
So it's like an enchantment. This is an equip spell. So like if you have 3 or more monsters with this, or I'm sorry, you can't have 3 or more. If you have 3 monsters with the same name in your graveyard, you can activate this. It like enchants the monster, and it's like attached to it, if you will.
This got limited because I'm sure at some point they realized that they had printed a whole bunch of things that search for themselves over and over.
Okay. Interesting that you say that. This, funny enough, was actually printed in the same set as the Treeborn Frog, now that I think about it. So it's another oldie, 2006.
I would think that when this card got limited, the game also, like with Treeborn Frog, probably went a certain number of turns. Because once these cards got really good, they started getting limited to like once per turn they can do the thing they do.
Okay.
So the cards that probably searched themselves up just probably did. Now would it like do it maybe across multiple turns to get 3 of the same thing in a graveyard?
Okay.
I don't know if I'm over speculating, but I feel like modern design would push something like that, you know?
Okay.
That one card doesn't just fetch itself 3 times in the same turn.
I will
That's
say
where they
you're
would
not
find
wrong
the
in
use
your
for these
assumptions.
once per turn effects.
That's all I'll say.
So now if it takes multiple turns to get all of those monsters, 3 of them, into the graveyard, then this isn't nearly as dangerous. I might be going too far down the weeds. I'm just going off like a bunch of the monsters I've seen that I know are in the current format. And the once per turn thing has obviously become... They should just have a short version of that. Like, they should just call it Uno, right? You just Uno. You only get to use this once per turn. I think this feels like a card that could be unrestricted because it should take longer now to get 3 things of the same name. And if you can get 3 things of the same name in your graveyard that fast, there's probably other issues just by nature of what those cards are providing and doing to make that happen. Because if there's a card that like you tribute it and then it goes and gets itself plus 1 more thing and you tribute that and it goes and gets itself plus 1 more thing and you tribute that and you're up 3 things, like that should be the issue if somebody's doing all that in 1 turn every time. So I don't think this is the problem. Man, I might be way too down a rabbit hole of how I think Yu-Gi-Oh works. Remember, all I've done is play starter decks.
Hey, you know Tier Element though.
I do. I also know that like those cards are all, as you put it, gigaband. Mm-hmm. And if those things aren't fine, this should be fine. It feels like that's getting 3 monster cards with the same name should be hard. And every time that there's something that does it too easy, I think those things get dealt with before this, because that seems like individual cards that don't have once per turn written on them or that chain off in such a way should be the problem.
You want some help?
And again, this is Yu-Gi-Oh. Do I? Yes.
Here, read this card.
Lone Fire Blossom. Once per turn, you can tribute 1 face-up plant monster. Special summon 1 plant monster from your deck. And is this a hard once per turn?
It is not.
So this just does it? Why are you showing me a banned card?
I didn't say this card's banned.
I know.
You can assume it's banned.
My theory is that all these would be banned.
Okay.
My theory is getting debunked before my very eyes. Why? God, why do this? Why is this okay?
Welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh, my friend.
Well, now I don't know. Jeez. And then, so let's see. You would just get back 1 of these. So you could do that thing. And it also says special summon the plant monster. So say the last plant monster is the quote unquote good one. Like, you're still just getting back 1 of these to summon another plant monster. If you do that like 3 times, hold on. 1, 2, 3. Then your last plant monster is a banger. Mm-hmm. Then Symbol of Heritage, get this back. Then you sack this, you go get your other banger plant monster. Mm-hmm. So now you have 2 of them. Mm-hmm. I guess? But the symbol doesn't do anything without the blossom, but you can build your deck in a way
Sure,
to
I was just showing you an example of a
blossom.
card that could basically self-fulfill the Symbol of Heritage requirement. That's all. And it's not, this is not the only card like this for context.
Oh God. Well, they did and have restricted all kinds of ways to reanimate stuff, but at least this one seems like it should have a deck building cost.
Should.
You know, given all the things that you've shown me of the various ways to get things out of the graveyard, at least this one should have a deck building cost.
Okay.
But geez, it's just so hard to tell because what is
That's
the actual outcome, and is the outcome the problematic part? I'm just gonna go with unrestricted. Let's go with it. Let's play more Symbol of Heritage decks, guys. I could see an appetite for this from the players. The people who like this probably really like this.
So this card was so abusable because there are other cards that can loop it. If you pay attention to the last part of text, it says when this card is destroyed, destroy the equipped monster. However, if you have cards that can bounce Symbol of Heritage back to your hand, Theoretically, there are infinite loops that this card can create because you could just keep reviving like monsters over and over again and bouncing Symbol of Heritage back and just do a lot of crazy shenanigans, which is why they had to ultimately limit Symbol of Heritage because it was during a time where there was not a lot of revival spells. Most of them at this point were banned, or I think maybe one of them was limited. And so Symbol of Heritage was like sort of a way to try to limit the power of like the revival cards back in older Yu-Gi-Oh! But you are correct. This card is at 3 now. It sees no play because it is not very good.
Okie dokie. Cool.
Got it.
Love
Got
that.
it. Good job.
Love that. I so got it. I was so confident.
All right, I bet you were.
So good
let's see if you're
about
let's see if that confidence continues into this card.
Magical Explosion is a trap card. Great. So it's a trap card, and you see trap cards aren't good anymore because they're slow, because you told me that.
So it should be a 3.
No, this is no longer a limited card.
Okay. You're not even going to read it. You just assume?
I'll read it.
Okay.
It's fine. Activate only while you have no cards in your hand. Inflict 200 damage to your opponent for each spell card in your graveyard. What's wrong with this? So you dump your hand. You cast card destruction like 3 times. and you dump your hand and you flip this and you kill him. That's just good, honest combo burn magic right there.
Okay, I thought you'd like this card.
Yeah. I bet back in the day this was very like, oh, I got cheesed out by Magical Explosion. What a stupid no skill deck.
That's what they sounded like. Exactly.
Special summon, nerds. Yeah, that's probably what they sounded like. And now, like, Jesus, today, I mean, I'm sure that there's a lot of ways to fill a graveyard, but if your deck is just loaded with spells and the opponent doesn't interact with your trap card activation, I'm guessing hand traps were a bit of a game changer for this, as well as the general speed of the format. That there's just a lot. I bet that interacting with this, based on what I've read and the monsters you've shown me, it seems like there's a lot of ways to interact with this now. I bet it wasn't true back in the day. So, I mean, it depends on whether or not they want to keep holding the spell deck down, and it doesn't seem like that's even necessary given the current format. So I'm going to go with initial gut read. All trap cards are now unlimited in the format. Let's say that this is not a limited card anymore.
You are incorrect. This card is still limited. Yeah, it's crazy. So, let me give you the context for this. So, Magical Explosion, it's not really an FTK because your opponent has to have a turn technically because you have to flip the Magical Explosion on their turn, but it's basically a first turn kill. So, this card is very old, and basically the concept was you played a deck of like 30 plus spell cards, maybe a couple of monsters that would like buy you an extra turn if you didn't get there. And basically the whole concept was you literally just draw through your whole deck and like just activate every spell card you conceivably can. Then you set 2 copies of Magical Explosion because 1 is never enough to actually kill someone. Because 200, you'd have to have 40 spell cards engraved for 8,000. So you need 2 copies minimum in order to kill them, because each of those with 20 spells not with 20, is it 20 spells? 20 spells times 200 would be 4,000, right? So with 20 spells, each one does 4,000. So if you have 20 spells and 2 Magical Explosion, that just kills them straight up. So that was the whole premise. So you dig through your whole deck. You would set 2 copies of Magical Explosion. As soon as your opponent draws a card, you flip both copies of Magical Explosion and you kill them, and they don't really have any recourse. Interestingly enough, you talk about how like with hand traps and such, like you think there'd be a lot of ways to interact with this. I would actually say there's not. There's like 1 or 2 cards I can think of that are quick effect hand traps that you can use to negate a trap activating like in the draw phase. But those cards are like very bad and have like basically never seen play. And so like you could argue maybe you would like there's like also like a couple other cards where it's like you can discard it and like you take no effect damage for the turn. But those cards are also quite bad. So like you could argue that like I don't think anyone would ever play a Magical Explosion FTK deck for context. There's other ways the hand traps can interact with spell cards to like stop the opponent from drawing stuff and like getting like digging through their whole deck. I think Konami's just kept this card limited because it's just like a not very fun deck. Like one person just playing Solitaire sets 2 Magical Explosion and just kills you. Like that's not exactly fun or interactive. So I think they just kept it at 1 because it's at 1 you can't really do the FTK, and they just don't really want to like have this type of like effect in the game anymore.
The propaganda against spell decks continues. The crying nerds have won again, and I hate it. I hate it. Just get OTK'd and take your monsters and leave. Oh my god. Anyway,
here's the next one.
It's fine. Oh, look at this dude. Dark Grepher.
Yeah, people like this guy.
Jeez, I wonder why. Dude works out, okay? Has
buff.
big sword.
He's buff.
Yeah, very, very metal.
Grepher is one of our like recurring characters. There's like many different versions of Grepher.
Yu-Gi-Oh's Gym Bro.
Yeah.
Got it.
Honestly, yeah.
It should be named Dark Chad Grepher. Attack 1700, defense 1600. 4-star Dark Warrior. You can special summon this card from your hand by discarding 1 level 5 or higher dark monster. Once per turn, you can discard 1 dark monster, send 1 dark monster from your deck to the graveyard. Oh, goody. Oh, goody. Tutors. We love those.
He's not really a tutor. He kind of just like dumps stuff to the well, I mean, in our game, it's like, you know, the graveyard's a second hand, so sure.
Yeah.
It's like a roundabout tutor. It's like a roundabout tutor.
Once per turn, so either turn.
Not a quick effect. It's not a quick effect, so you can only do it during your turn.
Oh, okay. Only on your turn. All right. But that's still, you're going to get what you want in the yard and then bring it back. It's a nice little enabler guy. Discarding a level 5 or higher. I guess if you want to special summon this very much. Basically, this is have what you want in the graveyard. So if you have a graveyard deck, this dude is here to fill it.
Assuming you have the fodder to dump, yes.
Yeah, I can see why it would be restricted in the day. Like like
in the day,
the dude
in the day, not now. Though.
Fuels himself, you know. Just you can discard more Dark Greffers for Dark Grepher effects.
Theoretically, yes, you could. Yeah, if it's not limited, yeah, you could do that.
Yep. So had to chill on that one. There was no downside to having multiples. I am tempted to look at this dude and be like, this could be more of a problem now.
Okay, interesting.
I mean, more dark monsters have been printed.
Yeah, true.
More combo cards with them in the graveyard have been printed.
True.
A lot of cards have been printed. And when something like is kind of limited by the type of monster it interacts with, like say dark monster, which I know is not a serious limitation because it's the most popular type in the game. You've told me that.
Sure.
But like anytime it has this somewhat limiting effect that only gets worse in an eternal format as more things get printed, like I could see this one sticking around. I could see this one like actually being more dangerous as time went on. Now, you said this person is popular. It is a compelling card. There is an audience of people who probably want to play decks featuring this.
I wouldn't say he's like popular. I said he's a recurring character like in the Yu-Gi-Oh lore. So there's like there's other versions of Grepher. There's like card art that like features Grepher that's like not like, that doesn't like, isn't like a monster necessarily. So like he's just like, he's one of our guys that you always see on card art every now and then.
I should try not to read into that too much, because a part of me is like, if I controlled a game like Yu-Gi-Oh that has an anime lore story around it, I would try to get the popular cards characters, the things that people want to play the most.
Sure. It's not like Blue Eyes White Dragon though. It does not nearly have that level of notoriety.
I'm gonna go with my gut.
Okay.
I'm gonna say that this is a card that gets worse the more best things and combos are printed.
Worse as in like dangerous?
Yeah, more dangerous.
Okay.
So I'm saying leave it restricted is probably a good, safe move.
Your instinct is correct, actually. Dark Grepher is, in fact, still limited for all the reasons you said, just as the Eternal card pool has expanded. Even in the retro Edison format, which is very popular, Dark Grepher sees play. He's a very old card. But he sees lots of play in that format, and even by modern standards, he's very good in certain decks. I don't think like at the moment he's played in anything, but anytime there's a dark good stuff deck, let's call it, Grepher usually rears its ugly head, and so as a result, he has remained on the limited list. He's kind of gone all over the place. He's gone to like limited, then like to 3. I think he got semi-limited at one point, and relatively recently, like within the past several years, he went back to a singular copy because there's a very strong dark deck that would play Grepher, and Grepher was very good in that deck, so they decided to limit it, and I think he's been limited ever since, if I recall. But a very good Yu-Gi-Oh card. It's weird because it's like you kind of read it, and it's like, it seems very minus in terms of like card economy, but then when you remember Yu-Gi-Oh, everything like in the graveyard's like a second hand, he's very good. So you were right on the nose. You were I'm very impressed, actually. I thought this was going to trip you up, so good job.
Yay. Senpai noticed me.
All right, here's your next one.
Gold Sarcophagus. Have I seen this card? I have, I think.
I may have referenced it. I don't know if I've shown it to you like for like review though.
I think I have. The art is really familiar. Okay.
Well, Yu-Gi-Oh uses that Millennium Eye thing very frequently, so it could have been on another card too.
Gold Sarcophagus is a spell card. It's looking at me, giving me Raiders of the Lost Ark vibes. Banish one card from your deck face up. During your second standby phase after this card's activation, add that to your hand. During your second standby phase after this activation.
Correct. So you would activate Gold Sarcophagus, banish a card. Your next turn would roll around. That's the first turn. Then the turn after that, you would get this card to your hand.
So there's a card in Magic called Profane Tutor.
Okay. It's similar.
This is very Profane Tutor.
What is Profane Tutor for the non-magic, or for the non-magic?
Sure. Profane Tutor, I believe, is you suspend it for 2, which I think is only 1 mana. It's a suspend card, so you can't cast it.
Okay.
Right? You can only suspend it, and you suspend it for 2, and then 2 turns later, you cast it for free.
Oh, okay. So it's like, it's literally the same card, just like worded differently, and like templated differently.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
so
like
I'm
instead of like
it's
like you're not, instead of you exiling a card, you're exiling the Profane Tutor, and then you get the card. Interesting. Okay. So same, functionally it's the same, but in terms of mechanics, it works differently. Interesting. Okay, cool.
I'm trying to think of how many waves Profane Tutor made and if it still does. And I believe that in the format it was printed for, Profane Tutor, like people find ways to cheat it to get the card right away. So a card with no casting cost, like a suspend card, if you cascade or discover into it, which are mechanics that cast like the next card in your deck for free, if you do that, you get the card right away.
Oh,
and I think those are the only kind of decks that somehow cheated the effect, right? That did it.
Okay.
So how would this cheat the effect? You banish the card from your deck face up.
I mean, like in Yu-Gi-Oh,
I don't think there is.
You would just need a card that says like add a banished card, from your banished pile to your hand, essentially. Which like Yu-Gi-Oh has some of those types of. I wouldn't say they're like very common. They might be like restrictive to a particular archetype, but we do have cards that can say like get a card from exile, essentially.
But that's so much more. That's so much more limited.
Sure.
The thing that makes it good in Magic is that the Cascade cards have their own effect.
Right.
Often when you do the thing and you get the tutor on the spot, it was then going on to win the game. Like this was popular in CEDH more than it even was in the format that the tutor was printed for, which was Modern.
Okay.
So like this one seems a much safer version of that card when I think about it.
Okay. It's cool that you have like a direct analog to this card. Like it's not often we have like almost a 1-to-1 version of things.
And I can evaluate it based on that. And basically the big problem is when it's not in your opening hand. Mm-hmm. When you draw it on turn like 3 or 4 and the game is already reaching end game mode in those formats. And you're like, oh, 2 turns from now, that's useful. What a nice top deck. So again, I look at this and I'm like, in current Yu-Gi-Oh, every single new set that's printed in internal format, like 2-turn window feels further away.
Sure.
It's a bigger cost. It's a bigger and bigger cost.
This card was printed, this actually was printed as a prize card initially. It got reprinted after that, but yeah, so at first the only way to get this card was actually winning in tournaments to like get this card. And then they eventually reprinted it. This is like 2006, 7, 8 maybe. It's around there. I think it's like 2008-ish now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, so they first initially printed it as a prize card, and then it got its like official reprint, so then like everyone could play with it.
I do feel like the edges, again, current Yu-Gi-Oh is played on such a fine efficiency edge that like the price of, even if you have this on turn 1, what if on turn 2 you draw another one? And you're just not affecting the board the way you need to? You're just gonna die. That's the way it feels like. Looking at the format, that's how it feels. I'm gonna say this one is no longer restricted.
Final answer?
Limited. Yes.
Gold Sark has surprisingly only got better with time. So initially, people, it was limited back in the day because it was very good, and Yu-Gi-Oh had, like, you know, was longer than 2 to 3 turns for its typical games. So being able to basically tutor for any card in your deck was, like, very rare, right? Even if you took 2 cards to get there. So again, once again, like in the Edison format, Gold Sarcophagus does see play. I believe it's semi-limited. It might be at 3, but it's not limited to 1, because I think you can play 2. All right, the decks I'm thinking of play 2 of it. But anyway, very good card back in the day, just because it tutored for any card that you wanted. If you needed a board wipe, you tutor a board wipe. If you needed your like a card for like your combo, you tutor for that. And like Yu-Gi-Oh was slow enough that you could like wait the 2 turns, get the card, and then like do your big push, right? What's interesting, though, is that this card got better over time because Yu-Gi-Oh! Started printing cards that triggered effects when they got exiled or banished. So, for instance, a card would say, if this card is banished, do X. So, Gold Sarcophagus immediately has, like, an impact. Like, it doesn't matter that you get the card in 2 turns because the effect still triggers from the banish zone. So it might be like, for instance, like if this card is banished, special summon this card. If this card is banished, tutor for a different card. If this card is banished, special summon something from your deck, right? And so as a result, this card is actually still limited, as a matter of fact. It kind of like went up and down. Like sometimes it was at 3, but for the most part, it's still limited. And one of the best decks at the current moment is a deck that you can activate this and banish a monster, and it has an immediate effect when it's banished. So you get, like, added value, because not only do you get, like, the effect, but then if that card, like, stays banished, then in 2 turns, if the game goes that long, you get to add the card to your hand anyway. So it's like extra value, just, like, for absolutely free. Plus, there's no once return on this card. So if you had 3 of it, and, like, you open 2 of them, you can, like, do both of the effects, like, of, like, whatever gets banished. So it turned from delayed value into immediate value, which is why the card had to get limited and is still limited to this very day.
That is a blind spot. I'm mildly salty. I don't think we have anything like that in Magic.
You have nothing that triggers like on exile.
Yeah, if you exile it, you get thing now or benefit now. I don't think we have anything like that. We have a lot of things that, like, when you discard it, do that, but not when it's exiled. Yeah, so I'm mildly salty on this one. This was a left field one for
It was, and I thought that's why it'd be fun to show you, because I feel like it'd throw you off quite a bit. So the exiled zone is like our third hand, if you will, for some decks. Not all decks like use the banished pile, but some decks, like, it's instead of using the graveyard, they use the banished pile as their like second hand. So, all right, next card.
Get in the notebook.
You're getting the notebook. Got to write that one down.
Been a minute. It's been a minute since we had a new entry in the notebook. I
thought you would have just back. I thought you would have just shredded the notebook at this point, to be honest with you.
I thought with all the, it's got a lot of damage from being thrown at the wall. But I thought with all the summoning stuff done, I wouldn't have to write down banish is third hand. Okay. What do we have? The command zone next? Okay, whatever. There. Note taken.
Good.
What else?
I'll let you know for this next card, you can ignore the first sentence.
Thanks.
I'm helping you out.
Yeah, he's such a guy. Marco Cosmos is... What?
Macro Cosmos, not Marco Cosmos.
That's a dude. This is Marco. These are his Cosmos. He's a trap in and of himself. All right. Macro Cosmos is a trap card. When this card is activated, you can special summon 1 Helios the Oh, I don't care.
You can ignore that.
While this card is face up on the field, any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. Oh, you guys like your floodgates so much.
This is a continuous trap card.
This is an awesome card. This card should have never been restricted. Shut these degenerate graveyard scum down. Lock them out. Make them play an honest dragon attack each other game. That's what I say. This card is totally fine.
That's your answer?
This card is the good guy. 100%. Let's see. But, of course, the softies softies at Yu-Gi-Oh couldn't handle their graveyard
oh God,
being
you're gonna be
taken away.
insulting a lot of people.
They can take it. I mean, are any of us card gamers out there? Are any of us still like disillusioned that we're the good guys?
That's fair.
We're great. All right. So this card got restricted. I do get why. It is obviously an important part of so many decks to so many players. Did it have to stay limited?
What a great question.
Did it have to stay limited? This is another one where this one has two factors that make this tricky.
Okay.
First is, while the format gets bigger, the graveyard gets increasingly busted, which means there's more graveyard decks that this could be helping against if this were the good guy. But we already know it's not the good guy or it wouldn't have been limited. So this gets more busted as the format gets bigger, which means that they're more likely to keep it limited. Similar to the, really buff veiny dude we saw. And on the other hand, it's a trap card, which means it got slower. And we've talked about, nobody plays traps anymore because it's slow.
Unless it's like a deck that is like supposed to be a trap deck, which is like the exception to the rule. Yeah.
This doesn't seem too slow to me.
Okay.
This seems like it would still get played. Yeah, I mean, you go first, you set this, you flip it on opponent's turn, and you just kind of told me with the other trap card there aren't that many ways to just stop it. I mean, there are ways to destroy
I will
it,
give you an asterisk here. Macrocosmos is more interactable because it's a continuous trap, so any sort of spell and trap removal can destroy it, whereas with Magical Explosion, it's a normal trap. You'd have to find a way to negate it immediately, because otherwise it resolves and just goes to the graveyard. So Macrocosmos sticking out on the field is susceptible to removal. So I could go flip Macrocosmos at the start of your turn. If you have a way to destroy it, like not negate, but destroy, it's way more susceptible to destruction, whereas you can't destroy Magical Explosion. The effect still resolves, if that makes sense.
This is also a magic card. This is Rest in Peace.
Okay.
I guess the only difference is Rest in Peace, you play it, it immediately exiles all graveyards.
Oh,
this says
interesting.
While this
So
card is face up, any card sent is banished.
Oh, wow. So it does both. That's crazy.
Yeah, Rest in Peace exiles all graveyards, and anything that goes to either graveyard is exiled.
But it's
and
not
exile
an instant,
is not
right?
a second hand in Magic. It's an enchantment.
It's an enchantment. So it's similar, but like you can't use it because like one advantage of Macrocosmos is like if my opponent does something that's going to like send something to the graveyard, right? Like take like Dark Grepher, So if they activate Dark Grepher, they still get to discard the card. Well, actually, no. They would summon the Grepher first, and then you can flip Macrocosmos like in response. And so now, if they were like going to Dark Grepher, now like they can't, right? So like you can sort of like gotcha them with this card. Where like Rest in Peace with what you're describing, you play it like it's sorcery speed. So it's like it's a little bit different in that regard, I would say. But for the most part, it's similar.
I'm gonna magic verbiage at you and the audience just a little, but those who know. I've done it in a few of my videos. Like a deck I play a lot in Standard lately, I play a card called Temporary Lockdown that exiles all things on the battlefield that are 2 mana or less. So I'll play the Rest in Peace, exile the graveyard. I'll play Temporary Lockdown to put the Rest in Peace under the Temporary Lockdown. And then when the opponent goes for their graveyard combo, I'll use a card to remove my own Temporary Lockdown to unlock the Rest in Peace at instant speed and get them. So I build my own trap card.
You can build your own Macrocosmos in Magic. Got it. Okay.
Yes. And God, is it needed. It's needed, man. Oh my goodness. Like Graveyard Hate in current Standard is almost is main deckable in Best of One, which is crazy. It's crazy we live in this world.
It's so interesting. I think there's only one card in Yu-Gi-Oh that I can think of that like when you play it banishes all cards like currently in the graveyard.
Wow.
There's a very old card called Soul Release which does 5 and you can do your graveyard as well. So like there's some combos there. But I think the only one I can think of is Ruddy Rose Dragon. Yeah, Ruddy Rose on Synchro Summon, banish all cards from the graveyards. Yeah, that's like the only card I can think of that like just immediately does it.
That just insta nerfs the graveyard.
Yeah, like there are cards in Yu-Gi-Oh that can like banish a singular card, but like, and there's like, those are pretty, like, I wouldn't say they're like all over the place, but they're pretty like uncommon, if you will. Like there's no shortage of that type of effect. But going after, like, the whole graveyard, like there's stuff like Macrocosmos that can like deter the graveyard, but like going after the whole graveyard is actually kind of rare. I'll be honest with you.
I mean, yeah, you guys would hate it. You guys couldn't handle it. You'd be angry. You'd be shredding cards in the street. You'd be losing it on the internet. It would be over. Yeah, we can't have that. So can we have Macrocosmos in 2025? That to bring it full circle. I don't think you like. This is the card where it's like, okay, why would they unrestrict it? They restricted it for a reason. Things only got worse. I'm gonna go with logic number one, which is this thing only gets better over time. Therefore, you can't unrestrict it. Also, I'm gonna go a little meta, and you're gonna tell me why I'm wrong, which I'm gonna learn something. It's gonna be great. But they did restrict the Abyss Dweller, right? Or they banned it.
They banned Abyss Dweller. Abyss Dweller's banned. Yeah.
Yeah. So right? So why would they, like, if this are unrestricted, would they be banning Abyss Dweller? Okay. I don't think so. So we're going to say this is still a limited card.
So something you may have missed with Abyss Dweller, though, is that it is a card you play from the extra deck, which means you theoretically have access to it at all times, because it's like your 15-card command zone, if you will. Where Macrocosmos, you have to, like, hard draw it or have a way to tutor it, which there's very few ways to tutor like trap cards specifically, unless it's like a deck that's like trying to do that. Macrocosmos has been like the good guy and the bad guy, because obviously Yu-Gi-Oh! Has the graveyards as a second hand, so it's really good that Macrocosmos has the ability to, like, shut down the graveyard-based decks. Back in the day, there was actually macro decks, because there were cards, for instance, that said, if this card gets banished, you can just re-special summon it back out to the field during, like, the end of your turn. So they called these macro decks because they always got this recurring advantage if Macrocosmos was active. And then you could like do stuff like tribute that for a monster or like do other stuff with it. And so like it not only like stifled the opponent's ability to play, but it like net benefited you because you were taking advantage of the banished pile. These are kind of the cards I was referring to earlier, like with Gold Sarcophagus, but those cards are like much worse comparatively, like by older Yu-Gi-Oh! Standards. Anyway, Macrocosmos is actually at 3 copies right now. It only recently got to 3 copies within, like, the past couple years. I want to say, like, 2022? Maybe 2023? But in any case, it was limited for quite some time just because it is, like, a very unfun card where it's like, oh, my opponent flips Macrocosmos. I can't play the game because my deck is, like, unplayable without the graveyard. So it was limited for a while, but it's back at 3 now. It's kind of like what you said with trap cards. It's just kind of slow. If you're going first, like, and you set it up, cool. There are ways to answer it, but if you go second, the card does nothing because your opponent probably already set up their graveyard and probably already has like some stuff in play. So going second, the card is really bad. And so people would typically kind of relegate this card to the side deck so that games 2 and 3, if they knew they were going first, they would bring in Macrocosmos as a way to kind of like hose their opponent. But card hasn't really seen much play coming back to 3. So it's kind of the good guy, if you will.
I think so. I'm kind of surprised they limited it in the first place, but there you go.
I think a lot of people are, but it is kind of annoying because it's like, you know, again, floodgates in our game are just like really debilitating compared to your game. So I think it's like they kind of banned it on principle for that.
Heaven forbid anybody ever tell you can't do something for free. Oh my gosh. Spirit Reaper. Let's see. It's a dark monster. It's a level 3. It's got 300 attack and 200 defense. It's a zombie. It cannot be destroyed by battle. Oh, that's cool. After resolving a card effect that targets this face-up card, destroy this card. Okay, so any effect that targets it by either player destroys it.
For the most part. There are some exceptions. I'll get to that later if you want to know.
When this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent by a direct attack, discard 1 random card from their hand.
Hand destruction.
Discard?
Hand destruction.
No. Oh no.
This is a test, CGB. This is a test.
Oh no. And everything has haste.
Everything has haste. So on an open board, you can just summon Spirit Reaper, attack your opponent for 3, and just rip a card out of their hand. Yep.
It has to be an open board, though.
Well, yeah, true. So for context on the resolving the targeting effect, there are some cards, for instance, that might say, like, target a monster on the field, flip it face down, right? In that instance, Spirit Reaper doesn't destroy itself because it's not face up anymore for the effect to like resolve for it to destroy itself. So like that doesn't work. But for the most part, everything that targets, which there's a lot of stuff that targets, will kill Spirit Reaper like straight up.
Yep, dies to everything.
Dies to basically everything except battle. notably.
Has to get through a wide open field. Only attacks for 300. So if I understand, anything with 350 like defense, if it's in defense position, or
walls it off.
Like almost anything can just bounce this. Like you have to really clear the way. I feel like everything we see that isn't designed just to be thrown into the trash is bigger than this. This looks like a baby in current
It also
standards.
does have to attack directly. So even if it attacks something with like 0 attack, it still has to deal a direct attack. That doesn't work.
Yeah. So
But it's hand destruction, CGB.
It is, but I don't think so, man. This doesn't look like a scary card in current Yu-Gi-Oh, is it? This doesn't look like it. I can't imagine too much of this going on. I also like just play your hand. Like this.
That's true. That's very true.
This is so bad. Like if you just played out your hand because of Spirit Reaper, like this just looks like you're down a card on board because this doesn't do that much. Do I?
It seemed like you did, but now it sounds like you're second guessing yourself.
I mean, it's scary if you're able to like get 2 of these and then clear the board and hit the opponent and they lose 2 cards. That probably feels like you won the game. But but at this, like, why don't you just play something big and take their life total like down by 1 million? Obviously losing cards is really bad.
Sure. So remember in our game though, card draw and like regaining cards comes at like a premium, right? So effectively, even though it's only doing 300 damage, if your opponent's down to like no cards, it's like you've won the game essentially. And at that point, it's just inevitable that you just need to put their life total to 0, because if they have no cards, they can't play. You have to keep that in mind. We don't have stuff that just says draw 2, draw 3, draw 4 all the time. Like it's like card economy is very important in our game.
Reminds me of Hypnotic Spectre.
Okay.
A lot, but Hypnotic Spectre had evasion and it didn't die to any spell, and any hand trap hits this.
Well, it's funny because you have to think this card was limited at some point. The question is, it's limited
because it's so sensitive about their hands. Not my hand. No. Oh no, my hand. Nah, it doesn't feel like a current limited card. I imagine that with the power level of current Yu-Gi-Oh, I bet there are things that you could do to like clear a board, get out 2 or 3 Spirit Reavers, hit, you discard 2 cards at random, and now for the next like 5 turns, you're just waiting to die because you're up 2 or 3 cards and there's no way back in. But I also think that if like there's 100 things you would have lost to if you couldn't stop Spirit Reavers from hitting you. Spirit Reapers. If you couldn't stop these little babies from hitting you, you would have lost to so many other things, I think. I'm just thinking about the monsters you've shown me that exist in Yu-Gi-Oh! Too. So I'm going to go with this is fine.
Final answer.
Yeah.
So an
I
old
like
Yu-Gi-Oh!
Never learning.
So in old Yu-Gi-Oh! Spirit Reaper is a menace. If we ever actually like play more old Yu-Gi-Oh! You'll learn how actually crazy this card is. There are instances where like even if Spirit Reaper hits you once, you feel like you're like out of the game, like just straight up. Like it just losing a singular card feels that bad off of this card. So a lot of like old retro decks would play it. That's when it was like limited because it was like at multiple copies, it was like even better. Very tutorable as well. But you're correct. By modern standards, this card is very bad. I just wanted to see if I could get you with the hand destruction part because I know how that part triggers you so much. Anyway, here's your next one.
Into the void. Cards on cards.
I love the anytime there's cards on cards. I love it. It's so meta. It's great. Does Magic do that? Totally. Is there any like Magic cards and then Magic cards in the art?
Not in a real Magic set. No, in maybe like some of the LOL products that they make, like unsets, but not like this. All right. If you have 3 or more cards in your hand, draw 1 card. And if you do, during the end phase of this turn, discard your entire hand. Oh my god. This is what you have to do to draw cards?
Yep, this is what we have to do.
I mean, it barely replaced itself.
It replaces itself.
All it did is replaced itself, and then you lose your whole hand at the end phase.
Well, like you said, just empty your hand.
Like
you said, just empty your hand. Then you don't worry about it.
I know, but like what did all it is a cantrip. It's just you're 1 card closer to whatever combo
That's all
you're
it
trying to build. I think this card, I can see the point. The point is you basically have less cards in your deck.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
And then when you limit it, it's like, oh, well, now if you draw it you only have 2 cards in your hand, it does nothing. Did that get better or worse over time?
What a great question.
It seems a lot like, my first thought is it's a lot worse if you have hand traps and you had to discard them all. Nice one. That doesn't seem good for you.
Okay.
That seems very bad. Yeah, the more interactive you have to be, the worse this is. Because this is just go for it, put out a board, and get there. Like, make your board unassailable or win that turn.
I'd agree. Yeah.
So, does a deck with 3 of these, is it significantly more threatening in, like, that combo sense? It does dig you 3 cards deeper. Say that you have 3 of these, right?
Sure.
And you actually draw them, and you're able to cast them. It digs you 3 cards deeper to the setup you need, and then you kind of have to go for it that turn. Either you win on the spot or whatever you do is unassailable. Your opponent is locked out because you're passing with no hand. You're open to whatever they can do. That seems like it got worse over time. Generally speaking, though, like, just free cycles for cards get better over time. And when power level goes up, typically speaking, the ability to OTK, the combos get better, the locks get better. This is a tough one because
I know it is. That's why I picked it.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because Yu-Gi-Oh has definitely evolved into this point where, like, every card is a force of will or something like you've said it a few times in our games together.
Yeah.
Like, you have 20 force of wills.
Basically,
in your decks.
yeah, that's what hand traps are.
This is not good in that situation, but you don't have to play it in a situation you needed to hold up and survive another turn. You play it in a situation where you go for it.
Sure.
And if your graveyard is a second hand, then discarding your hand back in the day maybe wasn't the cost. But now it's like being empty-handed and passing is probably a death sentence. So this is an end the game type effect.
You're torn on this one.
I am, because
That's
part of my
for the
instinct
end.
is that...
I figured this one would be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, part of my instinct on these card draw effects is they get better over time, but then, like, the description of the format just isn't very good for this. There's a card in Magic called Street Wraith. Street Wraith is a 5-mana 3/3 Swamp Walker. That's it. Except for this line of text that says, pay 2 life, discard Street Wraith, draw a card. And you can activate that at instant speed at any time.
Okay. So you could theoretically just cycle it at 4 times if you had 4.
Yep. In theory, you could just give up your 2 life and get deeper into your deck whenever you need to, and just play this 3/3 Swamp Walker. And in formats that got older, at first, like, people started running it more, especially in a deck where having your life go down was actually a good thing for you, is where Street Wraith saw a lot of play.
Okay, interesting.
But then, like, the pressure on each card spot and the ability to be interactive just got, like, worse. And then Street Wraith kind of, like, balanced back out and then wasn't played as much
because
anymore.
Like, each individual card had to be, like, you couldn't just play a cantrip. Like, each card just had to be... Yeah. So, funny enough, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has actually had a very similar trajectory to that.
And so now I'm like, is this Street Wraith? Card draw is a lot rarer in your game.
That's true. That's a big difference.
It does have a limit to it. I feel like it has a deck. I feel like Into the Void has a deck where it just... Yeah, where it's trying to just do it this turn. You know, the little swerve is going to be like, if you discard this card, something good happens for you. Like, maybe you get these things in your hand and then discard them, and that's a good thing. You get an effect when they're discarded. There's also on-board monsters that, like, can interact with the opponent. Although a lot of them say discard a card to do it. But not all of them. I feel like Into the Void has a deck. The question is, do we need to nerf that deck? Is that the deck that needs to be held down? Free is good, card draw is good. I'm going to stick with it. This card's still limited. I'm going to stick with that.
Final answer.
Yeah.
So Into the Void basically saw no play when it got printed. It took until 2020, 2021, 2022, somewhere, maybe even earlier, maybe like 2018, 2019. There was a deck that was basically just trying to draw the entire deck in order to OTK the opponent. And, like, that deck does it. So one thing you have to understand with, like, when it comes to hand traps, and I say, like, how every deck has, like, 20 force of wills. That's usually the case. However, sometimes Yu-Gi-Oh! Has combo decks that they forego any sort of, like, interacting on the opponent's turn, because if the combo deck gets to do its thing and it's consistent enough, it's going to win the game. And so these decks don't play any of the hand traps because they're just focused on consistency and trying to just do the thing that they're trying to do. So Into the Void slots into that type of deck very well because it's like you said, if you do the thing on the first turn, you don't care about discarding your hand. And it's very easy in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Specifically to dump your hand and like do a bunch of stuff. And like you won't have a hand anyway at the end of doing like your long combo or whatever. So Into the Void's downside basically is negligible. So theoretically, Into the Void is just 3 cards to cycle deeper into your deck to find the combo pieces to be able to just like win on the spot essentially. So much so that they had to limit Into the Void, and it is still limited to this day. You are correct. You got it right.
Okay. That was a toughie. That was a toughie.
That was a tough one. That was a tough one. And they are only going to get tougher. I got 2 left for you here. People are going to be very excited for the last one, but the second to the last one is also very interesting. More card draw.
1 day of peace. Well, we can only have one of them because
only
only one day of peace. Let's be real. This is a spell. Each player draws 1 card, and neither player takes damage until the end of the opponent's next turn.
It's 1 day of peace.
Yeah, it is, but come on, man. Come on. Nobody's using it for that.
What do you mean?
This is all like, I'm gonna do the combo thing again.
Okay.
This is all just like draw cards and yeah. Also, I'm sure nobody likes tracking all this neither player takes damage stuff, especially until the end of the next turn. So if you play 2 of these in a turn,
they don't stack.
It doesn't stack. Okay.
No. But you can play a 1 day of peace. The turn cycles. You can play a second 1 day of peace on the next turn.
Could just keep doing that. You are giving up cards.
You're giving your opponent a +1. Yeah, so like, again, that's not very good.
But you are digging through your deck, and this gets played in decks where they're going to try to combo outside of combat, and they're guessing that their opponent relies on combat. Seems like that's a pretty common Yu-Gi-Oh! Thing. I mean, this is definitely my kind of card. And
I was going to say, I feel like you would like this
Magic.
One. Yep, I feel like you'd like this one.
These things have existed in Magic and have rarely needed to be restricted or banned, but when they do, it's like, oh, yep, that makes sense. That has to go. 100%. So in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, if you're playing 1 day of peace, what is happening? What is your deck doing?
What is your deck doing?
It's gonna,
what a great question.
Yeah, it's gonna be another like combo out. It's gonna be some kind of a combo, and this is just another way of like trying to dig 3 cards deeper. In that way, it works in the deck that Into the Void works in.
Theoretically, sure.
Yep. The question is, giving your opponent that card, is that going to punish you? Are they going to get the hand traps that they need? And this is where, if in Magic, we would have cards that lock you out of the opponent's turn, like lock the instant speed interaction out, those kind of floodgates. A card that says your opponent can't cast spells this turn would be like played.
I remember you
with
showed me like
this.
Silence, and that'd be the most broken Yu-Gi-Oh card ever.
If you guys don't have Silence, then there is more of a risk to it, but the risk of them drawing exactly the interactive piece they need versus the trade-off of you getting a better consistency to get the combo you need. The biggest problem I have right now with 1 day of peace is I would in a vacuum say that this is still limited in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because of the way card draw is just so good in your game and the combo decks are the way they are. But you showed it to me right after Into the Void. So you know I'm coming off this either going, yep, I knew it, card draw has to be protected in Yu-Gi-Oh! Or I'm coming it off like, oh my god, you guys restricted the worst cantrip ever. How could this happen? And now you're showing me this one, and it's like this one looks so obvious. Well,
would I ever trick you like that? Would I ever do such a thing?
Must be limited. And yes, 100% that is what you would do. 100%.
This is the best part about you and I doing like 30 videos together, is that now there's like, it's not even about the card game. It's about the mind games more than the actual game itself.
You wouldn't show these to me back to back. You would put one at the beginning and one at the end and hope I'd forgotten if they were just both limited. There is no way. You're hoping you're like, he's gonna be clouded. He's not gonna see the one thing he may have missed. And the thing I may have missed in the past is either player, all right, when each player draws, card draw is so good that actually going neutral to give the opponent another hand trap to interrupt you, it can be a bad thing. It's a very bad thing. And also dragging the game out, neither player taking damage until the end of the opponent's next turn. That is a bit of an issue too, because you're going down, you're giving them a free card, and now you're saying we're going to play a longer game? You want to play a longer game down a card? Okay, well, I see through your lies. 1 Day of Peace is not a limited card anymore. It's totally fine. Nobody plays it whatsoever.
Final answer?
Yeah.
So initially, the reason why 1 Day of Peace got limited, as a matter of fact, this is also a very old card. I think this card got first limited in 2012, 2013. The reason this card got limited, as a matter of fact, is because of Exodia, if you can believe it. So what you could do is you would play like a deck that just draws like a billion cards. But if you don't have Exodia, you can't win the game, right? But you can 1 Day of Peace. It draws you a card deeper into your deck. And now you know you're not going to die. And so with 3 copies of this card, you theoretically have 3 extra turns to assemble Exodia. I believe at the World Championship, at the year that there was one player who played an Exodia deck, and I think got like in the top 8 of the World Championship, he was playing 3 copies of 1 Day of Peace. I'm almost certain. And so that was like part of the reason why the deck worked, is because you have 3 extra turns to like do stuff to actually dig deeper into your deck in case like you just don't get there on the very first turn, which is what a lot of Exodia decks tried to do. As the game has aged, you talked about like how do you win without dealing damage to your opponent, right? Well, when I reference the combo decks with Into the Void, what combo decks essentially try to do is one of 2 things. They either try to deal 8,000 plus damage on the very first turn and like just kill the opponent straight up, so it's like an FTK or no TK, kind of like Magical Explosion, or they try to summon a bunch of monsters that have built-in negation effects, so that in theory, if you have 5 to 6 negation monsters on your field, your opponent only has 5 to 6 cards in their hand. Maybe they use some hand traps to try to stop you. If you can 1-to-1 negate every card that they have in their hand, next turn you just turn all your monsters into attack position and just kill them for game. That's what these combo decks aim to do. And so like there is a world where 1 Day of Peace can like help you establish that combo, so that way it's like, oh, you don't kill them with battle that turn, but on the next turn they can't do anything anyway, so then they're just gonna die. But it is another cantrip, like you said, and it's still limited. I got you. It is still limited to this very day.
Mother God.
Anyway, we have one final card. One final card. He's tilted now, so he's definitely not going to get the last part.
Called by the Grave. The art is great.
The art's great.
Or these other 2 are just not even paying attention. This guy, me? Yes, you. Me? Oh, God. All right. Target 1 monster in the opponent's graveyard and banish it. And if you do, until the end of the next turn, its effects are negated, as well as the activated effects and effects on the field of monsters with the same original name. If you banish it from the graveyard, until the end of the next turn, its effects are negated. What? This is a weird line. How is it having... So did it create an effect that was ongoing when it went to the graveyard? Like a static effect that now is no longer happening?
So it's like a lingering effect. So if you banish a card with Called by the Grave, that effect, until the end of the next turn, so that would also... mean it, like it's like this lingering effect that like lasts until like the next turn, so you kind of have to remember that it's like in effect, which is kind of annoying. If something has when this goes to the graveyard until the end of your next turn something, and then you play this on it, does that effect go away? Does that lingering effect get overruled by this lingering effect? Sure. So for instance, like let's say there's a card that just goes to the graveyard that says like, when this goes to the graveyard, draw a card, right? You can, in response to that, activate Called by the Grave to exile that card or banish it, and that way the effect it negates that effect of what that monster would have done. So it's like it's like a force of will for the graveyard in a way.
I can't believe how touchy you guys are about your graveyards. Oh my God. It's no trespassing signs all over these graveyards. This got limited? Oh my goodness. Isn't somebody trying to pop off too hard where they have 1 in the graveyard and then another on the field and their whole deck is around this thing? Isn't making that a little tricky a good thing? Isn't Like, why can't we stop these people? Why do they have to get to play their little graveyard combo monsters in order to be happy?
Limited. That's if it's still limited.
It does feel, this one even more so than the like exile everything. I can see why that, like, it hits such a wide amount of decks, you know? So I can see how people could get upset with that and not want it around. And now that's fine because it's a trap and it's slow.
Well, this is for context, this is a quick play spell. So this is our equivalent of an instant. So you can do this at instant speed.
Yeah, but it's also really specific. It has to hit the thing when it's in the graveyard, and then it turns off its effects. And I'm assuming often because people are trying to assemble 2 or 3 of these things because it's an effect that they want consistently. And it says you have to take another turn before you do that. That feels, that's like good interaction to me.
Okay. So it could be good interaction. You don't know.
Yeah, it could be. But I'm just already bracing myself for no, we absolutely have to be able to do our things. Take a turn. That's a death sentence, CGB. That's insane. I'm already bracing for it.
Do you want me to help you out?
Just a little.
You should know this card from a video we've done before.
Effect Veiler, a tuner. Oh, yeah, let's go. Okay. During your opponent's main phase, quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, then target one effect monster your opponent controls, negate the effects of that face-up monster your opponent controls until end of turn.
Put it together.
So it's a counter to Effect Veiler.
It's a counter to hand traps generally, because all hand traps require you to discard them to the graveyard from your hand as cost. So because of that, it hasn't resolved yet. It's on the stack. Call by the Grave can be used as Chain Link 2, or the next card on the stack, to exile that hand trap, and now it negates the effect of that hand trap.
It's protection for your combo, a counter for a counter.
With some other, like, versatility, because, like, it doesn't have to just be for hand traps. You can go after graveyard stuff, and, you know, there's like, cute tricks you can do with this card.
Magic, this would be totally fine.
And maybe it's totally fine in Yu-Gi-Oh! Maybe it's totally fine in Yu-Gi-Oh!
It wouldn't even be the best version of this effect. Like, our version of this in Magic, I mean, it's actually free, and it would go through the opponent's hand and deck and exile all of the cards of that name.
Okay.
Just gone.
Okay.
Like, it would be, and that card is fine. That's
you seem like flabbergasted by these last few. This is great.
This is so, I mean, everybody's playing hand traps now. We've talked about how many there are. Mm-hmm. So obviously there's a market for this card.
And this is a newer card for context.
It's a newer card.
Yeah, like I knew her relatively. I think it was released 2016, 2017. So it's like, it's still oldish, but it's not as old as most of the cards I've shown you in this video.
So why would they unrestrict it in a hand trap world? Is it because, I mean, if everybody's running hand traps, then does everybody trying to push through a combo just upgrade to Called by the Grave? And it's only limited. So if it's already fine, it's in the format, what does unlimiting it do? It's good enough. It's not banned.
It's not banned.
What does unlimiting it do? It makes it possible to lock these cards out turn after turn. It makes it possible to have multiples, but you don't really need more than one. Like, if you banish one of those cards, you're just having a second one doesn't help you because you already turned off the others.
If there's multiple hand traps with different names, having a second one could be useful.
I suppose so, but in each case, it's like very interesting. Like picturing like the stack in Yu-Gi-Oh! And how many hand traps go into Called by the Graves and vice versa, and the back and forth fighting. Man, I could see a format with this. I could see a format without it.
That's why I saved it for last. I figured this one would be interesting.
I think this is one where I could even say, like, I could call like a really bold shot and be like, it's not limited in Asia and it's limited here or something like that.
Sure, you can do that for a lot of these cards, though, to be fair.
Yeah. It's such a down the middle. I'll go with that they unlimited it and see what happened.
Final answer?
Sure.
People fucking hate this card.
I bet they do.
So the biggest issue with this, like, you know that we have hand traps, which again is like having like 20 Force of Wills or whatever. The biggest issue with Called by the Grave is that it invalidates the fact that hand traps exist, essentially. So let's go back to the example of the combo deck that's trying to kill you on the first turn or set up an unassailable board that, like, you can't overcome, right? They're doing their thing. You're like, oh, I have my hand trap that's going to stop them at X point because you know where the choke point is in the combo, let's say. you activate that hand trap, and then they just windmill slam Called by the Grave and just invalidate the fact that you have a way to answer their actual removal. Now, you could just say, like, get good, kid, right? But it feels really bad when, let's say that's your only hand trap, because, like, we don't have a mulligan in our game. So say you were unfortunate and, like, you're playing your 20 Force of Wills and you only drew one of them, that this one card that they also happen to play just completely just negates the fact that they have the ability to stop your combo, and then they just get FDK'd and they lose and they get pissed and they just leave the venue, right? So, like, in theory, this card is, like, really well designed because there's, like, a lot of cool applications for it. Like, it does stop the hand traps, but, like, it also goes after stuff just in the graveyard generally. It's really cool because it's like, if there's a monster in the graveyard and a monster on the field that have the same name, if the monster on the field is activating its effect, you can banish the one in the graveyard with Called by the Grave to negate the on-field effect that's being activated. So that's, like, a really cool interaction with the card. There's, like, really cool stuff you can do with it, but the fact that it invalidates hand traps, which is one of our main forms of interaction, is why people hate this card to fucking pieces, because it just feels so bad, because you're like, oh, I have the way to stop them, but, like, they just have, they happen to draw this card that stops your way to stop them, right? And so, as a result, this card is limited. It is still limited.
So why is it still limited and not banned?
Great question, CGP. What a wonderful question. If I could call up Konami on the phone right now and ask them that, I think I would, because a lot of people hate this card.
It seriously just makes the experience that you're describing worse.
It does, precisely, which is why a lot of people want this card banned.
That's why I was like, why would you limit it if you want this kind of back and forth? If you don't want this back and forth, you ban it, because it's like even nastier if they drew their one.
Wow, that's so interesting that you say that. If only, like, they actually listened to that and just banned the card outright. There's another card that basically does what Called by the Grave does that they also printed, and that card is also limited for the same reasons. And again, you could ask, why don't they just ban it? Great fucking question. We have no idea why they don't ban it, because everyone wants them to ban it.
Gorgeous, amazing.
The best part about, you know, the best part about this card, I will end on a happy note. You know, the best part about this card is that it stops Max C.
I love it.
Yep. That's and
that card.
And Max C is legal in Master Duel, and this is one of the only ways to, like, not lose to Max C. So that is, like, one reason people love it, but aside from that, everyone else hates it.
Oh yes. Kill Max C. That should be how we judge our formats.
Precisely.
How bad can we make Max C?
Exactly. Well, I mean, that's another card that they should just straight up ban, but that is not for this video. But now you got a glimpse into some of our restricted cards. What do you think? We're a bunch of babies still?
Sometimes. That's the weird thing. Some of them make sense, like there's a philosophy, and others it's like, I honestly don't know. I don't know what makes them take something on or off the list compared to another. It feels like darts at a board, my friend.
Boy, you are learning Yu-Gi-Oh! So well. You know what? Just because you said that, I give you the win for this video. You won. Good God. Congratulations. So guys, that's going to wrap it up for another video. I really hope you all enjoyed. Let's go ahead and shout out the patrons for all their continued support. So shouts to Shadow1317, Tim00x3, MBT Play Madolce, Moto, Cameron L. Smith, The Synchro Guy, Pony Stark, Little Fayley, Dan the Man Hoban, Draconic, Brian Dancer of Class 7, Dylan Rare Hunter, JW11860, Flannel Daddy, literally all of the guinea pigs, Cheeks McLapperty, MBT canceled by community soon, canceled by committee soon, canceled by all players soon, Wonder Waffle, Daniel Howell, MBT and Nimnim's One Boxer Brief Fueled Night of Passion, Electrician of the Ice Barrier, The Noble 129, Chris Adams, and Lillamancy. Thank you all again so much for watching, and we will see you next time.